Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. And we're going to talk about a mystery book this week, and the mystery starts right away. It starts when I tell you that the author of the book is Charles Todd. But Charles Todd is not one person. Charles Todd is two persons. The title of the book is The Red Door. It's an Inspector Ian Rutledge Mystery, and it's published by William Morrow. Thank you for coming, Charles and Charles.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Now, one of the Charleses is a woman.
And my friends call me Caroline.
Caroline. And Caroline comes from Delaware. And Charles, you hang out in North Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Right away, that raises a problem in my mind. You collaborate, if that's the word. Is that a good word for what you guys do?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. You collaborate, and one of you is in Delaware, and the other one's in North Carolina.
It's better that way. We don't get in each other's way.
How does this work?
Well, actually, even when we're on tour like this and I'm up in Delaware, I'll be on the first floor and she'll be on the second floor. Less interruptions, greater ability to consider the other's point of view and what they're trying to do. We work scene by scene until we get things the way we want them, and then we proceed on. It's not I do chapter 1, 3, 5, 7.
Ah, okay. That was my next. I was wondering how that worked out.
We don't need to bother the reader with showing who's writing what when the story is what's
carries the process forward. Yeah. Well, that's good.
It's a system of consensus, and we've worked together on 12 Ian Rutledge books and 2 Bess Crawfords. And
2 Bess Crawfords now?
The next one's coming out. We've already handed it in.
Congratulations.
So we must be doing something right because it's still working.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it says here that you have one other piece of fiction called The Murder Stone.
Yes, that was a standalone. A woman protagonist during the war who finds that she is suddenly on her own to deal with life, and life gets very complicated at her grandfather's funeral. All of these are in World War I.
Now, when you're collaborating, do you go to, well, you kind of said like you do it in Delaware. You never do it in North Carolina. Do you do it?
Oh, I do it in North Carolina. I'm saying even when I am in Delaware, we're not sitting in the same room.
Same room. I got you.
Yeah.
We work primarily through email, instant messaging, some phone calls, some, but mainly it's one of us updating the current scene, sends it, and then sends it back. And
the current means of communication really makes this more possible and easier, I would think.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Did you do this before all this new stuff, or?
No, we were fortunate to come in with our version of collaboration just as the technology caught up with us.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Email was, well, we started writing in 92, 93.
93.
And so it was there.
A lot of stuff was available then.
Yes.
Sure. That's great.
I wouldn't have wanted to try it with carrier pigeon.
No, I don't think you should. Now, how many editors have you run through? Or when the editor gets it, it's just like getting it from a single author?
Yes. And we've had 3 superb editors. Ruth Cavan and Carolyn Marino is our current editor. Kate Misiak was in between. And all of them understood that we work this way and were willing to work with us.
That's great.
They prefer actually having one theoretical point of contact rather than saying, well, I need to talk to Charles about this or Caroline about that. They just send the email to us.
They're both of them.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, as long as you guys are working so easily together, you can certainly work over changes or comments together too, which is what the editor's sending you, I suppose.
Right,
Yes.
but we don't bother the editor so much with the individual personalities of it. Obviously, we do when we meet in person and that kind of thing, but mainly it's Carolyn will send us an email about what she needs to communicate, and we'll communicate back.
So she'll get one email from whichever one of us is on the computer that day.
That sounds great. That sounds great. And obviously it works. We've done 12 of the Rutledge books and some other stuff as well. Well, as fascinating as the story behind the book is in this case, when we return, we will plunge into the story. I promise.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
The title this week is The Red Door. Most importantly, it is an Inspector Ian Rutledge mystery. More important than that, the authors are with us. They call themselves Charles Todd. They are really Charles Todd and his mother, which is very nice. I like that.
I think we're the only mother and son writing team.
As far as I know, I've interviewed two sisters who also write mysteries, and I can't for the life of me remember their name.
Was it P.J. Parrish?
Yes.
Kelly Nichols and Christy Monteith.
Christy, yeah.
Know them well. They're nice people.
Yeah. So, this mystery, this book is much more complex than what they do, and it's much more concerned, I think, with history, with a superb sense of place and the way things are done there. So your stuff to me seems much deeper, but it's still exciting. I don't want people to think it's a boring treatise.
We try to keep you on your toes all the way through.
You damn well do.
It's a psychological thriller to us more than a mystery. It is a mystery by its definition, but it is the psychological suspense of solving the mystery that attracts us and hopefully a few readers in the process.
I think okay, I'll buy that. Now, one of the early reviews comes from an interesting place. It comes from something called Romantic Times Book Review.
Yes, it's been amazing. Rutledge is popular with romance readers. He's popular with thriller readers, with cozy readers. We've got a very broad audience, and that's been
great.
wonderful.
That's
yes,
great. Yeah,
and we've gotten to meet a lot of them too, and it's a wonderful group of readers. Mystery
romance readers
are.
buy books like mad.
Oh, don't they?
And
Yes.
and in many cases they cannot wait for the paperback. They've got to buy the hardcover, which is also very nice. And Romantic Times Book Review says, in part, this mother and son writing team cleverly weaves in social details, which you were talking about, and historical facts without slowing the story or the character development. It's hard not to read about the psychological and physical wounds of war and the fear left by the great flu epidemic of 1918 without feeling a shiver for our own time. Very interesting and very true, I think.
Yes, and this is what we like about this period. It resonates with the modern world as much as it does with the historical past.
Now, Ian Rutledge seems to me to be one of the calmest, most thoroughgoing inspectors I've ever read about.
Well, this is what we were trying to do. We wanted a man who had to solve the crime himself without forensics, and he has to work hard at it. He has to put himself out of the picture and listen to what the people are saying to him and come to his conclusion, because the man or woman that he takes into custody will be tried and executed if convicted.
The other thing that he's up against is the family.
Yes.
Which is, in many cases, lying through its teeth.
Absolutely.
To cover this or cover that.
A family stays together, sticks together, and that's something that's very interesting to explore.
Yeah.
Rutledge has to be patient enough to learn what it is in these people's relationship with each other and with the various characters in the novel in order to determine what is going on beneath the superficial aspects of the crime itself.
Yeah, he's always interested in not just what's been done, but what the motivation might be.
Yes.
Right.
And he's very meticulous. Now, there's another continuing character in this book 12, an important continuing character, probably more than one. And I don't know how to say the name. Is it Hamish?
Hamish.
Hamish.
Yes.
And Hamish is not really real, but he's real.
No, he's real to Rutledge. He's a young Scots soldier Rutledge had to execute on the battlefield. And because of that, Rutledge carries that guilt with him in his mind. Rutledge believes he's dead in France. Rutledge knows that he can't be talking to him, and yet his own needs to assuage the guilt of his role in Hamish's death makes him keep him alive in his own mind.
And he's also very helpful from time to time.
He's helpful, but in a unique way. Hamish is a coping mechanism and a means for Rutledge to work through his thought process, but Hamish never tells Rutledge anything that Rutledge isn't exposed to already. He's not a ghost or a specter.
He gives him an angle.
Right.
Absolutely.
Gives him an angle. The Red Door keeps us guessing. And just when you think you and Inspector Rutledge have it figured out, something else happens. Just stay tuned.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at JimFosterCoc or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
This is Conversations on the Coast. The book today is The Red Door. It is a Inspector Ian Rutledge Mystery. The authors are Carolyn and Charles Todd, who run around the country telling everybody they're Charles Todd. I don't know why they do that, but they seem to enjoy it, and they sell books, and we don't really care. Kirkus had something nice to say in his early review, and you'll have to tell me whether this is true, because this is the first Rutledge book I've ever read. Departing from Rutledge's earlier cases, the caprices of fatherhood take precedence over the iniquities of war this time, with a subdued Hamish and an emotionally reawakening Rutledge along for the ride. Now, I don't know whether it's a subdued Hamish, because he seemed to be pretty bothersome.
Well, when the subject is war, he's more present in Rutledge's minds than when it's a different kind of case.
Mm-hmm. And emotionally awakening?
There's a hint of a love story there, and that wasn't our doing. Rutledge suddenly became interested in this young woman, and what will become of it, we don't know.
Well, the book kind of ends with hope there.
Yes, it ends with hope, but will it be realized?
Not much of hope, because her bags are packed and he ain't going.
Absolutely.
Well, that happens.
In real life.
It certainly do from time to time. Now, one of the things that I think you capture here absolutely beautifully is Scotland Yard. The way people involved with Scotland Yard kind of handle themselves. There's a scene when Walter Teller is very upset, as he usually is, with what the inspector is trying to do. He crossed the room, took up the book from the table beside the chair, and in one motion heaved it at Rutledge. It missed his head by inches and clattered against the door before falling hard to the floorboards. Quote, "I'll assume that was a reflection of your distress," Rutledge said, coldly. "But," and this is the line I like, "but I'll advise you now never to try that again." Now, you see, an American detective would have picked the book up and thrown it back at the guy, but
Yes.
not Scotland Yard. Always reserved, always American word, cool.
That's right.
And I would have thrown it back. That jerk.
I think Rutledge may have been tempted, but he's been brought up in the English tradition that you keep your emotions under control.
I have a problem with these brothers. I really do. I couldn't find much to like in any of the three. Maybe it was because they were all on a mission to keep the family reputation pristine.
Yes. They're trying to protect the family.
Yeah.
And even though they're having their own problems with each other, they unite when there's a threat to the family. And there's a reason why they unite. There's one person that they are protecting above all others, and that determines their behavior to each other and to the police.
It's odd, but we can relate to that. I can say things about my family members, but you better not.
Right. And there's also something going on here, I think, in terms of what class they are. Where they're in the class where reputation is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
Where who they are is sitting upon hopefully impeccable history. And they don't want to be that part of the family that fouls things up.
In England, you wanted your name in the paper when you were born, when you married, and when you died.
With proper notes. The woman behind the red door. She's really out of their class, isn't she? And yet I found her a very sympathetic character, even though she almost works totally backstage.
That's the interesting part, because Florence is one of those people that has more of a presence than you would ever recognize in behind the scenes, whether it's encouraging or advising or just by the example that they set, that most people wouldn't even admit that she has as much influence
As she does.
Yes, she touches the lives of many people, and you wouldn't have expected it.
That's right. She's really all over the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she says little. She says nothing, actually.
She's the kind of person who sticks in your mind.
Oh. This is called The Red Door. It's an Inspector Ian Rutledge mystery. If you haven't read these mysteries before, go out and buy a few. They're absolutely fantastic, just like this one. Charles Todd is the author, and Charles Todd is Carolyn and Charles Todd. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC, or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.